Labor Talks, recorded at Chippewa Valley Community Television in Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
Welcome to Labor Talks. Today's special guest is John Johnson. John currently serves as the Eau Claire County Highway Commissioner. Welcome to Labor Talks, John.
Thank you, Lori. It's good to be here this morning. Thanks for inviting me on the show.
Okay, great. There's a lot of people that have lots of questions for you, so we're going to try to get through some of them.
Okay.
Can you tell us a little bit about you and the position that you hold?
I was born and raised in Cumberland, Wisconsin, and currently I've been married 13 years to my wife. We have 4 children. Growing up, I grew up in a family business, an excavating business. I've been in construction all my life and was raised with a lot of good principles and character, which I think are valuable. So as I got older through school, I decided to go on to college. I went to the University of Wisconsin Stout and I got a degree there in construction management and stayed into the construction field because it's kind of my passion. So I worked on the heavy highway side of construction for a while, and I started serving the public in Washburn County back in 2009, and just recently came to Eau Claire County in October of 2015. So
new job for you.
Yep, it's been great. So as a highway commissioner, it's a statutorily appointed position. So in state statutes, the commissioner's responsibility is to lay out, improve, and maintain the highway system in the county. So currently under my jurisdiction are the county highways and bridges, and what's unique in Wisconsin is we also have an agreement with the Department of Transportation to maintain their state roads as well. So between the state and county highways and all the bridges there, I also like to work with the local townships and municipalities and help them as much as possible too.
Well, in like the village that I live in, there's a state highway that comes through there. So the county and us, we all kind of work together, like you said, to help work on the highways. If they're doing a project, maybe they can do some of ours at the same time. And
right, yeah, the networking and working together is really what it's all about, especially in today's atmosphere. So.
And saving our taxpayers' money.
Right, exactly.
I have a copy of the November 2014 Highway Outlay and Maintenance Program Review. In that study, it says that we have a number of substandard or fracture critical highways and bridges. Can you tell us how the priority is assigned?
Yeah, in the county we have our highway system and then the bridges, like I explained. Now, they're inspected differently. So what we do is mandatory. We go every 2 years and we inspect our system. And we rate our roads and then we inspect our bridges. So in the study that you read, which is a really good study that the county performed, you'll see that almost half or 50% of our system is in poor condition at that time, which started raising a lot of red flags about what's happening. We need to look into this, and it's not just a local thing, it's a statewide epidemic that's going on because of funding and shortfalls to do with funding. So cost of materials continue to rise too. So as we rate our roads, we look at what are the worst ones, and what ones are in good shape, and then we have to prioritize them by how many people drive on them. Are they near a really urban area with a lot of traffic? Also safety. Do we have some accidents happening? Those types of projects get moved up the list because we really are concerned about the safety of the travel of the public. So, and then when it comes to bridges, you get to a point where a bridge, if it's not maintained or repaired, has to be closed. And that's something you don't want to have happen because that impacts people's daily travel. So.
And it takes a long time to fix the bridges.
Right.
I think the collapse of the 935 bridge in Minnesota really woke people up to realize they can't have the same bridge forever. It has to be worked on. And
correct. Yeah, and actually, it's that project there got all the departments of transportation in the states looking at their structures, and we had a bridge on Highway 27. Actually, that was the same design that was replaced very quickly because it was a similar design, very same design. Yep. So
that was, I think, the fastest built bridge I've ever seen go up. Is
right.
the one that when they replaced that bridge.
Yeah.
It also shows that the backlog of highway work in Eau Claire was between $90 to $100 million. How much headway has been made since 2013?
I'm glad you brought that question up because this year we just completed our inspection of the roads, and we had a 10% increase an improvement in our highway system in Eau Claire County. And that's in large in part to the study happening in the county board and all the officials looking at we need to invest in our highway system, and they did just that. So we were able to improve our system by 10%, which is a pretty good increase, for the county. So, but the funding shortfall isn't just at the local level. I do have a report card that I wanted to share with you, and this is the Wisconsin Taxpayer Alliance report card, and on it you can see that our highway conditions is a D, which is the lowest grade on the report card. To all of us in the transportation industry, this is unacceptable. But in due to large part of funding shortfalls in the transportation program. So,
And people complain all the time that Wisconsin has 2 seasons, the construction season and winter. But I don't think they really realize, I mean, if you spend as much time on the highway as I do, those roads have to be continually updated, especially with the traffic and the weights of the semis and things and the permafrost in the ground, like we were talking about the upheaval and stuff.
Yep.
Is the rest of the state similarly behind? I mean, since that D is for the whole state.
Yeah, the Department of Transportation in Wisconsin did a survey, and they found that 71% of Wisconsin roads are in poor to mediocre condition. So Wisconsin is also home to the 3rd worst road conditions in the nation right now, just ahead of Connecticut and Illinois. So I mean, we've got a lot of work to do here, and we got to look at long-term funding, and basically that's user fees, whether it's gasoline or registration fees. We need to look at some of these items and get them increased so we can keep our roads in good shape. So.
I'm surprised Illinois is that bad when they've got tollways where people pay for the highways.
Right, yeah. The tollways take care of that road itself, but the rest of the highway system.
That are non-toll systems.
Right, yeah.
In your opinion, has the state budget been detrimental to getting these projects done with the lack of shared revenues from property taxes?
Well, now when it comes to transportation funding, our funding is basically for transportation comes from a couple areas. Now, at the state of Wisconsin, 54% of our funding is the gas tax, really, and that gas tax is critical. So, I mean, that's almost half of the money we get for our transportation program. 34% is vehicle registration. So, when you start looking at a couple items there, in the Commission on Finance did a study here at the state level saying, we need to look at these main funding mechanisms in our transportation program and look at getting them increased so we can have the funding we need. Gas prices are at a record low now. Why don't we take advantage of that and get some funding back into our transportation system? So federal funds account for 24% of our state funding, transportation funding, and that's another fuel tax at the federal level. So yeah, that's how that breaks down really for us as a transportation funding program.
But that's more like the state highways, things like that. But the county roads, you get shared revenue.
Yeah, the shared
a little bit.
Yeah, there's a little bit of shared revenue, and basically at the county level, we're all in the same pot. And so you look at what have our levy limits been now, where are we fixed at, and if we're not able to levy funds because of caps, then the whole county has to work collaboratively to figure out how can we use the limited funds we have. And on top of that, a lot of funding programs we get from the state and federal level are funded by the gas tax too. So if that doesn't get increased or indexed in some way as fuel economy goes up, we are looking at a large deficit in funding. So.
Well, and not just the maintenance on the highways that needs to be upkept, but the maintenance on the vehicles.
Right.
Those vehicles are not cheap.
No.
And like I said, I grew up on a farm, so I know what farm equipment costs, but as a village board member, I'm learning what equipment costs for the village to take and keep those roads up and maintain those roads. And we are so far behind.
Yep, and that's another cost that your fleet costs. We just recently bid out at some trucks, and they're $242,000 for a plow truck, and they're in the salt in some of the harsh conditions.
So they'll
possible.
last.
Yes, right. So, yep.
A few of the highways in this county have taken the 70-mile-an-hour speed zones. What's the criteria in the state that they look for to make that change?
You know, the Department of Transportation really has control of that in setting the speed limits. But state statutes say that 55 miles per hour is the statutory speed limit for all towns and local roads as well, unless posted otherwise. So some of the big speed increases we're seeing is because of expressway classified highways. As the traffic numbers increase, the DOT looks at that, and then there's also some pressure to get vehicles and people to destinations quicker. So you see that push because of the fact that the roads are designed as expressways and classified that way. So from a design standpoint, they can bump the speed limits up. The issues you run into as the access points, so like Eau Claire here on the new bypass, you have several access points. So that's why the speed limit is lower to 65 yet. But I think it should still be a little bit lower because there's so many access points. That's something we as the locals debate quite often, that there's a lot of accidents that happen there. So yeah, if you increase speeds, you do have that potential for more accidents. But on expressways, they limit the access points, the ramps.
Well, part of the problem with the accidents is people see the speed limit, they think they can go that.
Yeah.
Doesn't say that the road conditions warrant them going that speed.
Exactly.
I know there's a new section on 29 that's
Yes.
also been moved up to 70.
Correct.
And it appears like it coincides with where the cross traffic ends.
Right. Yep. Yeah, and that's exactly why they stopped at that point, because the cross traffic then from there on is higher, the access points, the side traffic. So they cannot increase the speed limit at those points.
At
Yep.
those points. What's the current minimum speed limit? And will those be posted as well?
That always becomes a pretty hot topic, and I get quite a few calls from taxpayers in the area here and people who live in the area that want to reduce the speed limit. What happens is it's a pretty big study. It's a speed study that you have to do and look at how many people are accessing the highway, in the traffic. There's a lot that goes into it, and vision. You got to be able to see far enough. So by a statute, a county or a township can lower the speed limit from 55 to 45 without approval. But beyond that, you have to get state approval to do that.
And
so.
what about posting? I know those signs aren't cheap,
Yep.
but
Yeah, if you when you see a regulatory sign, a black and white speed limit sign, that is the law. If it's black and white, it's advisory. So that's just your caution to go that speed. That's not the speed limit. But like road conditions warrant, you should go a little slower if we're saying that. Yeah.
I think every driver should take an Autobahn class.
There you go. Yeah.
Driving on the Autobahn was fun, but it also taught you pretty much the I want to say the being nice part of being on the highway. You see someone coming up behind you, get over.
Right.
This lane is for passing, not, they have a lot of different rules over there, but I think they would really, I think they
Appreciate.
also teach them how to drive roundabouts over there.
Yeah.
They don't do that here.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
A large part of the highway department's job is maintenance, correct?
Correct.
And have any new technologies been developed to aid in that endeavor?
Yes. Our maintenance program, we've been investing more and more into that, because just for everybody who owns their own car, if you don't maintain it, it won't last. It'll cost you more money. So we want to maintain our highway system. New technology we are doing is AVL GPS. It's a computerized system that helps us monitor and keep track of the materials we use. And the DOT has been a partner for that. It helps us control how much salt we use on the roads. It's very expensive, salt is, so we're monitoring that. Pilot controls, we have newer controls inside to make the environment a little more friendlier for the operators, so when they're out there for extended periods of time in that truck plowing constantly, we try to help them as much as we can. Spray patching, when it comes to patching on the highways, it used to be you would see somebody out there with a shovel and just putting the material in the hole. We have new technologies there that we're implementing that last at least 3 times longer than the typical throw it in the hole and drive over it method. So there's been a lot of changes in technology that we've embraced just to make it easier for us and better for the taxpayers. Yep. So.
And the materials themselves?
Yep.
Is there a way to make them better for our cold weather compared to Florida's heat?
Yes, there's new polymer modified emulsions and asphalts. There's a whole new science there. And the asphalts that are used in the road and the cement, we're constantly developing new methods to make them last longer in our harsh conditions. So yeah.
Are we using the brine on our highways here to prepare for the winter storms?
Yeah, the brine, the salt brine, has kind of taken on by storm here in the state. There's quite a few counties using it. The reason is because it cuts back on using rock salt, which is expensive, and it's less waste. So our brine systems on our trucks, you'll see there is liquid tanks surrounding our trucks now. And we use that to help keep the material on the road and also cut back on material usage to save money. So.
And is it so then it's better than the salt sand mixture, right?
Yeah, it's better than just putting regular salt on the road. And a lot of times you'll see a truck putting salt down and it's bouncing right off the road.
And hitting your windshield?
Yep, and hitting your windshield. So putting the brine in there, getting it wet, getting it to stick better to the road is a great improvement from what we used to do.
Is it more harmful to the vehicles?
No, it's actually less concentration of salt. So I guess the corrosion wouldn't be as high as a pure salt solution. So it's still salt, but not to a pure form. So yeah.
I would think it's also easier to clean up in the spring.
Right. Yep. Yeah. The brine itself basically lasts for a little bit of time. So we'll go out and pre-treat roads with just salt brine now, and that helps us get roads in a better condition rather than us just have to be out there putting salt down. So we can just pre-treat it with a thin amount of salt brine, and that just dissipates and works better. Yep.
I was on the left. I live in St. Croix County, so I left from St. Croix yesterday, went all the way to Wausau and back, and snowed the whole way there and the whole way back. Yeah. And I got to say, the roads to me seem to be a lot better than it used to be with just the stuff dumped every so often.
Right.
And I know that in our village they spend a lot of money and time in the spring sweeping.
Yep.
Because they got to get all that salt and sand off the road.
Right.
And then of course then it clogs up your drains and into the sewers and stuff like that too.
Right.
According to that report, much of the engineering used to be done in-house.
Mm-hmm.
Yet now it's being bid out. Is that more economical or because we were understaffed?
Well, that's a great question because when the study was done, what the county board elected to do was to inject additional funding into the department. It was such a large amount that we had to figure out. At that time, I wasn't here yet, but they decided to have some consultants help with the process. So the additional consultants was to get through a first phase of funding that was put back into the highway department. Now we've got some projects on the shelf, and we are going to be doing more design in-house. So that is kind of going back to the way it was, but there was a temporary time there where additional help was needed because of the funding. Yep.
Well, and I know that we just bid out for our engineering process for Hammond, and we had 4 different ones, and they were pretty much all local, but they don't always subcontract local.
Yeah.
And that was one of our complaints, was they had one that said they were going to do everything local, and then we found out they had hired a bunch of people from Texas. Are you doing, is it going pretty well as far as hiring local?
Yes. Yeah. All our contracts are when you talk local, you might have a firm that's Wausau, Rice Lake, or in the area, but for the most part, yeah, they are in this area within a couple hours for designing, but Menominee,
Right.
those types of areas. So yeah, we don't have any out-of-state, contracts or anything like that.
And
so.
then the people doing the jobs on the roads are the county guys?
Correct. Yep.
And then the contractors that you would, like on the state highways, you see Matthey and
Correct.
Monarch and all the other bigger contracted companies.
Yeah, and some projects we do let out to bid, and then you'll have your companies like a Haas Sons or a A1 Excavating. We have a lot of good qualified contractors in this area, which helps for us. So when we're balancing out our project load, what we can do with the staff we have and what has to be bid out, we never have an issue with good contractors. So.
And I've noticed just about every bridge that I go over has Lundy is they'll be out of Black River Falls working on them too, and I'm like, they obviously are extremely busy, which is, it's good to see our guys busy. So are there any steps that you would recommend that we take that could make the transportation situation better?
Yeah, there's a new campaign going on right now, an outreach campaign for Wisconsin called Just Fix It. And we can't keep kicking the can down the road. We have to fix the issue we have right now in transportation. Transportation, I guess what I would say is when you wake up in the morning or when you're leaving to go wherever your destination is, what's the first thing you do? You get on a road or a highway. And we take it for granted sometimes, but if we don't do a long-term funding solution soon, in 20 years we're going to have a failed highway system in the state of Wisconsin. And that's unacceptable. So the biggest thing is just fix it, and all the answers are there. The public, all the associations in the state have spoken that we'll pay the additional gas, fuel increase if we need to. Let's keep our roads in good shape because that's what drives the economy in a lot of cases. So just fix it.
And the traffic amount on the highway seems to be getting heavier and heavier and heavier,
Yep.
especially on I-90 and 94.
Yes. Yep.
Are there any plans that you know of to make, at least from like Eau Claire to the city's 3 lanes both ways?
Right now, the funding, the way it is it's just trying to preserve the system we have. And that's kind of the phase of local programming that's happened at all levels, from the state down, is we're trying to use the funds we have to preserve what we have. As far as improvements go, the 90, the expressways, there's projects in place there to try to improve them, keep them in better shape, but no expansions at this time in this area.
In this area.
Down in the southeast, there is still some projects that are planned for expansion. So, yep.
Well, and I know that when they did the new bypass exit ramps in Roberts, New Richmond, they made them wider, they said, so that they could possibly go even from there over. Because a lot of those communities are bedroom communities. They live here, they work there.
Right.
And there are times where you can't get on that highway.
The room is there, the funding is the issue.
Okay. Is there anything else that you'd like to add, John?
No, I just appreciate the time on the show, Lori, and thank you for having me on. So
We'd love to have you come back and keep us updated
Sure.
on projects, and especially if there's things that the viewers need to know, to stay away from this area because, like the Water Street, because that bridge is being worked on, or stay
Sure.
away from this ramp because this ramp's going to be out for just this many weeks. I know we've got a notification for our ramp. It's like this phase 2 of the project is when they close that ramp down, and then they have to worry about detours around.
Right.
Is there a better way for smaller villages and towns that you can think of to help them to keep their businesses coming into town rather than, can't really close it? I mean, you can't really not close it, but is there?
Right. The best thing that I have my experience is communication and transparency about a project from the very beginning. I've seen a lot of large projects come into areas where local townships know about it, but they really don't understand what this means until it's too late and the project's happening. So I think when it comes to helping the local communities, the businesses, it's when they're contacted to get your community involved. I think community involvement is really important when large projects are coming to Roberts or to Trigo, Wisconsin. I know there's a large project coming there. Get everybody involved so they know what's happening, because that in the end makes the project successful. So.
I know we had a couple of advisory meetings and 11 people came.
Exactly.
And then nobody knows, is there a way to maybe schedule that meeting 2-3 times that day so that you can catch people from the different shifts?
Yeah, there's a lot of great tools out there today, and we're trying to take advantage of them currently between the website, which is old news now. There's the Facebooks and a lot of the social media ways to contact people. But press releases still work well too. I think it's a combination of all those things to make sure that people know this is important. It's going to affect your livelihood, how you get from day to day places. So please be there. The choice really has to come down to them to make sure they come to those meetings. But you're right. They're very few meetings that are heavily attended, so yeah.
If you tell them that the road in front of them is going to be closed, and maybe they'd come, right?
Right, exactly.
This report that I've been mentioning to everybody, it was a Highway Outlay and Maintenance Program Review done in 2013, and it was published in 2014. You do these reports every 2 years, right? Or this study?
Well, now the study is unique. The study is a one-time study that was done for the Highway Department. The road ratings and the system itself is graded every 2 years, so we give it a grade every 2 years. So the study did develop because of the poor conditions of the highways in the county. So I mean, that's the main reason for the study. And this similar study was done at the state level too.
I'll have to find that one.
Yep.
Because
yep.
I looked
the Policy and Finance Commission did do the same study with recommendations to the governor. So I mean, we have had the studies done. We know what the answers are doing. Locally, Eau Claire County acted on it. So it's a very promising thing that they did, and it's great to see that. I'm happy to be part of that. And then at the state level, now we have all the answers. The people have spoken. Let's fix it and let's act on it.
It was a really good report. Like I said, I wish we had one like for our county, and I mean, it was really educational, and I think it would be good for everybody to read that report.
Yep.
Well, that's our program today. My thanks to our viewing audience and to John, who made today's program possible. My thanks also to those folks working behind our cameras, who not only make this show possible, but give us an outlet for our voices and things that our communities need to know.
Right.
A final note, Labor Talks is on channel 993 twice weekly, and you can also use your favorite search engines with keywords Labor Talks and CVC TV to find us online. Thank you for joining in today.
Chippewa Valley Community Television is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, you can contact us by calling 715-839-5067 or on the web at www.cvctv.org.